Oh, this is 54 Burford Lane, Salisbury, Wiltshire, and this is Haskells Nursery, which has been here since 1927, and we're going to have a quick tour down through the nursery and then the idyllic Britford Lane. Yep. And it's locked. And welcome to the top of the nursery. And here we have on the left one of the top greenhouses, which has a few primulas left in there, and behind you there we have one of our largest tunnels, which is generally used as an unloading bay, storage bay, and we have a few tubs there which have been made up over the weekend. Yeah. So now onward and downward. And this is one of our top greenhouses as well, which, as you can see, has a whole variety there of geraniums in, which is one of our summer stocks, yeah, which is all being, as you can see, they're spaced out. So it's all brought in here from the other house next door, which everything has grown on from plugs. And then everything is spaced out in here so it can get nice and large. They will get buds on them ready for flowering up and going to market. Every single plant has to be watered individually. And now we're going to go down to one of the other greenhouses where the plants are potted up and nurtured on. Yeah. So we're going to go down here. This part of the nursery is one of the oldest parts of the nursery, which has been here since 1927. And this greenhouse here used to be one of the oldest greenhouses, I remember, before it was rebuilt. You had to, when you're in it, you had to crouch down as you would hit your head on the overhead bars. Since then it has been rebuilt. And in here you can see all the geraniums, which have been potted up only days before.
And who does all that sort of thing then now?
Well, it would have been Joss, and also my mum was the principal potter-upper, or pricker-outer, as you would call them. So now we've seen the plants as they've been potted up only days beforehand. We'll show you where the trays are filled and the pots are filled, ready for the plants to be pricked out. Okay, would you like to follow me?
Well, how long have you worked here?
I did work here for 8 years. Fortunately, I'm not a nurseryman anymore, I'm a nurse.
From what ages did you work here?
From the age of 16 to the age of 23, I think.
What was your favourite part of working in the nursery?
I was probably doing the markets, actually, yeah. Which was probably also the most annoying part of the job because of the customers. Right, this is what you could call as one of the nerve centres of the nursery, where all the compost is mixed and also where all the pots and trays are filled, yeah? So not only is this a hive of activity during the summer, but it's also one of the most important jobs. If you get the mix of the compost wrong, plants won't grow, yeah? And you also have to know exactly what you're filling for what particular plants, yeah? So you have to have a really vigilant, really sophisticated person to be able to do this job, yeah? Yes, and we have Doug, which helps us. Right, now we've seen where the pots and trays are filled and where the compost is mixed, I'm going to show you what, well, not what goes into, because that's a trade secret, but I'm going to show you where the chemicals and stuff are mixed. These aren't chemicals, they're more like, I don't know, more like the minerals, yeah? When people talk about vitamins and minerals, you take supplements, this is what we put into the compost, yeah? The compost is generally a peat mix, which is highly acidic, and there's nothing in it whatsoever. If we put plants straight into the peat, they will just shrivel up, roots will get burnt and they'll die. So we have to introduce, we have to level the pH out by adding in lime, and then we have to add in trace elements and nitrogen, you know, to make them grow, yeah? So this is where everything is weighed up, very crude and rudimental, but then again it is only just a few chemicals there in lime which we're weighing out. Yeah, protective equipment has to be worn at all times, yep. And generally the measurements are secretly locked away in everyone that works here. It's not written down anywhere, as it's a trade secret. So you're very privileged to have come in there. This may not look very much, but this is in fact the peat-based compost, which is dug out from a peat bog in Ireland.
Ireland?
Yes, and then shipped over. Consequently, because it's being dug up from peat bogs, as we know, is a site of scientific interest, the price of this peat has shot up, yeah, which of course pushes up the price of your petunias. Stop laughing. Right, and here we have one of our largest tunnels again. This tunnel is predominantly used just for plants to harden them off and to get them ready for market. So in a minute you'll see a whole range there of summer bedding, petunias, and a lot of our cabbage and salad crops. Everything in here is grown ourselves. Everything in here is potted up and grown on, and all the trays are mixed in the other house which you saw a moment ago. The lettuces which you have here, just down by the side of us, were probably pricked out about I would say probably about a couple of weeks ago, and they were sown about 10 days before that. So it's quite a quick turnover for the vegetables, and this is the time of year which everyone is, wanting to start off their vegetable plots and gardens. Just a little bit further on from that, you've got your start at the first batch of your hanging basket plants. So the trading varieties of petunias, and you've got some helichrysum in there for the looks of it. So everyone is starting now, with the nice weather of course, to think about planting up their baskets. Yeah. Fantastic. And you have the everlasting wallflowers there in the pink, and they would have been potted up back in the autumn. Yep. And as you know, wallflowers flower in the spring, so everyone is now thinking about putting them in their gardens for several weeks before they dig them up again and put the summer bedding in as soon as the frosts have finished. And if you like to have a quick look behind you there, this frame soon will be filled up with summer bedding plants. They'll come out here to spend the rest of their life before they go to market. Yeah? And guaranteed, if you come back in a couple of weeks' time, this frame will be packed full of lobelias, alyssums, calendulas, antirrhinums, yep, and also those cabbage plants you saw out there. Yep. And here we have the bedding plants which will be going outside, I should imagine, within the next couple of weeks. The violas you saw at the beginning, they will probably be going out, I should imagine, the next couple of days. But then we have the pansies, calendulas, or the old-fashioned marigold, or English marigold. And then we have some more violas, some sweet williams there, and some more calendulas. And here we have some godforsaken primulas. Right. Now we're going to walk down to one of the largest greenhouses we have, which mainly most of the bedding plants you saw in the tunnel were pricked out in. So they're pricked out in this particular greenhouse, and then they're moved into the tunnel to harden them off a little bit. So there'll be a lot smaller plants.
What's the differences between the greenhouse? Why do you do one in one and one in the other?
Different greenhouses. This particular greenhouse is a very light, airy greenhouse, and we don't usually put benches in this greenhouse, so everything goes straight onto the floor. Most bedding plants we picked out go straight onto the floor, whereas behind me here, in this house here, it's a slightly smaller house. It has benches in there all the year round. And we house such plants as the verbenas, the busy lizzies and begonias. Now they wouldn't do so well on the ground, they would probably damp off. Also they like it slightly warmer. So again, it's just for logistic reasons, putting plants which need a warmer environment into one greenhouse. Yep. And it also, once they're pricked out, they all need to be sprayed over with a fungicide and a pesticide to make sure that they're not eaten. And if all the three varieties of plants need the same chemical, it's easier to pick them out in one greenhouse. Whereas the things, most of the bedding plants in this, the perennials in this greenhouse, they don't need to be sprayed over at all with any type of chemical. Once they're pricked out, they basically will grow unaided, apart from watering of course, which again is all done by hand. Yep. Right, here we have in this greenhouse a selection of bedding plants which have been recently pricked out. These plants will stay in here until they're large enough to go outside into one of the tunnels to harden off. Most of the plants in here have been picked out from plugs, which means we don't germinate themselves. They come already germinated with roots on. Yeah? So this saves time and money. We don't have to germinate the seeds ourselves. We don't have to have a specialist environment to germinate them. We don't have to have seed boxes prepared. And we don't have to have someone somewhere to bring the seeds on either. The seeds are already germinated, so they don't need those special requirements. And also it means that as soon as the seed is, or as soon as the young plant is pricked out, it will come on quicker, yeah, because inevitably when you're pricking out the plants in our seed boxes, all the seeds are close together, they're interwoven together, and you damage the root system when you prick them out. So it has large advantages in buying in plugs as opposed to germinating your own seed. And our government, being the government it is, looking at ways to make more money from the poor garden centre, introduced a seed levy or a seed tax, which means you're taxed on whatever seeds you produce. So the more plugs you buy in, unfortunately, you've already paid that tax on those seeds, but it is cheaper for you in the long run. That concludes our tour of Haskells Nursery, and you know that you can find any type of bedding plant or trailing basket plant or veg plant sold at your local market near you.